Here we go. Is that okay with you guys?
Fine.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So I'm going to go ahead and record this, and then I'll post it out later. And so what happens is everybody sees all that information and they go, oh my stars, right? Well, it's just like you went to a new job. They're going to tell you all of this stuff, and then they're going to hand you all of these papers. And then after that first week, you have it all. So go back to it any time that you have any questions. Feel free to ask questions of me. Students call me all the time. It's no problem. And I will return your call just as soon as I can. The only thing that I'll have this coming up week is Monday of this week after next. I'll be starting to travel, and I'll be going up to Flint. So I will not be available on Mondays and Tuesdays, but by Wednesdays I'll be up there, and I will be able to contact people. But even on Monday and Tuesday, I will still have internet connection, so we'll still be able to answer email. So anytime you have a question, give me a call, send an email, put it in that Ask the Professor thing. I added a couple things to the class to make it better. The first one is the frequently asked questions thread. I only put that in the first week, but you can go back to the first week anytime. It has things in there that pertain to questions that have generally come up through the course. And so go take a look at that thread. Frequently asked questions in the week 1 discussion thread. You do not need to post anything. They're just questions. And if you have a question you want in there, you tell me. By George, we'll put a question in there. Okay? And that way, then the next set of students that come through have some other questions, some things that will answer for them. So they're not sitting out there going, what do I do? How do I handle this, right? Really kind of no problems. And that other thread, and I've told everybody twice now, please read that thread that says, read first. There's a reason for that. It's like the directions on how to drive a car. You read the directions on how to turn the key, right? So that's the read me first thing. We're at the end of the week now, and I think at least because I'm teaching 2 sections, in one of the sections, only about half of the people have read that. And when something says read me first, that's kind of what it means, huh?
Yep. Hey, can I add something?
Yes, ma'am.
In my last class, which was organization change, that instructor gave us a lot of information in the first week also. So you're not the only one.
Well, that's good. I mean, the whole deal is I work for you.
Right.
That is the bottom line. If there's anything that I can do to make this course more successful for you, I want to do that. But it's like Yogi Berra used to say, it's a 50-50 proposition. I give 50, you give 50, and then we both give 50 more.
Right.
Something like that. He used to always say that. It's a 50-50 proposition. 1, 2, and 3, they're all 50%. He had an unusual way with numbers. I think that actually comes out of our text somewhere where they talk about the 50-50 thing. So, if I can make it better for you, let me know. Some things I can do, other things I cannot. I have been instructed by Baker. I may not change certain things, but I can add things, and I add them. Okay, here's a couple ways to succeed before we get into some of the things that I have here. Always do more. One of my very, very first leadership mentors said, I'll tell you what, the person that only does what they're asked to do will never be asked to do very much. Right? And so a person that succeeds, whether it's in school or whether in their business or their life or anything, or their family, anything else, they're going to do more because they know when they invest in something, they have a return on their investment. So over deliver, do a little bit more. It will not hurt anybody. It will help you, right? The only problem is some of the students in this class are taking 2 or 3 online classes at the same time. I did that once. In my master's program, I took 1 course at a time, and I took 2 at one time. I was not sure what planet I was on by the end of the course. I could not tell you what my name was, what day of the week it was, or my telephone number. You know, those standard things that they ask people to find out if they're suffering from dementia. I was demented. I was gone. Okay. And then we have students that are doing that. And so, you know, they have a rough time. But if you can, deliver more than what it asks for, just a little bit, right? And try and use outside resources. Sure, all of the questions, I picked the questions for content that was in the text, right? That makes them relevant, some of them, but some of them, guess what? They'll reach out and they'll go, how does this really work for you? That's why you'll see some of those questions, and one of the students wrote a response like, I think I'll take a shot at this. That's okay. Take a shot at it. It's not going to hurt anything. And everything builds on everything else. Everything from the first week, and I have been in classes where when I have taken classes where when we were through with the first week, we never saw that stuff again. Okay? It's not going to happen. Everything from the first week builds into the second, builds into the third. You'll see the same concepts, the same principles. It's going to be constantly reinforced all the way through from one end to the other. So it's going to build. You get no freebie. It's not going to go away. As one person said, it is not going to go away. And it's very practically oriented. For example, that project that we've all been talking about now, what am I going to do in week 6? I have no idea. Well, okay. A lot of you have some really good ideas. And here's the neat thing about that. That's all part of how would you sell a project? How would you get somebody at work to accept that? Now your work now wants to do that thing because you found enough about it and it really applies, so you made it real for you or for your work or for your organization. And there's no difference between company, business, and organization. Government, not-for-profit, for-profit, whatever, they all work the same way. I've been in all of them. I've seen them all work. So when we say company or business, if it's organization, it's organization. It's okay. Same thing. All right? Make it apply there. Make it apply for you. And if you cannot make the stuff apply for your career right now, guess what? It will later, but you know, wait a minute, I'm not going to think back for this long. How about can you apply this stuff in your life now, right? Like strategy, like planning, like what's prioritized. That's what you're doing now when you're taking your courses. You're prioritizing your time. It all applies. So make it apply, okay? Make it real. Make the course. I try to make it real because it is, and it's a lot of fun. You'll get into things and you go, what the heck are they talking about? Next thing you know, we're talking about artificial intelligence. We're talking about decision support systems now. And I've already woven some artificial intelligence into the decision support systems. We're going to be talking about that. The artificial intelligence things later on as the weeks go on. It's all real stuff. For example, some of the things I wanted to talk about tonight. If you have any more questions, go ahead. Let's have a question. Otherwise, I have some stuff for you.
Actually, I have a question because I'm still working on my paper that's due tonight. So pretty much the aspect is we're just analyzing. I don't know. I was thinking to myself as far as references go. I mean, pretty much you're looking for this just a personal opinion of what I experienced and what my expectations are, right? It's my own evaluation.
Yes.
Are you looking for some type of references or not? Because it's hard for me because every paper I've always done, we always want references, but this is an evaluation from my perspective, and usually some instructors don't like that because, you know, stay away from their use of I and so on.
Okay, well,
so is that acceptable?
Okay, we talked about DMAIC, right? That Six Sigma stuff. Okay, we are adapting that to a business project. We're also talking right now this week about business projects and business planning, right? We're going to tie all that together for the whole 6 weeks. You picked one organization. You have that organization, both of you and everybody else. You have that organization. And now the very first thing you're going to do is pre-evaluate. I think it's like personnel is first. And then there'll be one on pre-evaluation of technology. And then there'll be another one on something else. All of them pre, right? That means you look at it. What do you see?
Okay.
You do not have to say I, because when you see it, you're an objective person. What did you see? And make sure you always answer all of the questions.
No.
Okay?
Okay, thank you.
Leave,
I think that was your wife trying to speak behind you there.
yeah. And here's the other thing. Those things are not shared. I'm not sending those out to anybody. But here's
okay. That was my next question.
Yeah. And the next question is, what about if I'm looking at something that maybe I really do not want everybody to know that I work for the XYZ Corporation, and XYZ Corporation has these problems? That's okay. Guess what? You just have to tell me XYZ Corporation.
Okay.
I was
going to ask you to
call it. Sanitize the name. Yeah.
Okay.
Sanitize the name. Sanitize the organization. As long as I can tell what you're doing. That's the objective. What you see, and everybody has, if you have an organization that's perfect, it's not on this planet. Not here. Okay? And so you're looking for issues that can improve. That's what, and when the first one is, you're just going to find all the status. What is there? And then the next one, you're going to find what all the status is for technology and what all the status is for something else. And then the last 3, you're going to look at, okay, I found this status. Now, what needs to improve? And it's an improvement on every single one. Always, always, always. Everywhere. You'll find something that can do better.
Now, within my paper, should I announce and say that, like, okay, should I, like, use some type of informational sentencing or structure saying that, I am masking, this is not a fictional company, but I am masking it, or is that not necessary?
You do not have to.
Okay.
As long as, and now here's the other thing, it's that same organization all the way through the whole 6 weeks.
Yes, I know that, yep.
The same organization all the way through. And so it does not, no, I do not need to know that you work for the ABC Battery Company. I just need to know that you work for a company and there's enough information there that I can really tell that you know what you're talking about. You have actually found things, you're relating real things. And you go, all right, well, wait a minute. What if I do not work for a company? Okay, then pick an organization that you might be familiar with. For example, one of the students in the class is living either in Texas or somewhere out west, right? And she does not work for a company, but she is part of an organization. Her husband works for that organization, and so they're part of it. So I think her husband is military, right? But she's a student. So what is she familiar with? She can be familiar with the organization that her husband works with, or a part of that organization that her husband works with. Or if someone just felt like it, they could go, well, I would like to find about Apple Computer. And they could go do a whole bunch of research on Apple Computer and write all 6 weeks on Apple. It's okay. What you're doing is proving that you know the process. You're demonstrating a competency. Okay?
All right, thank you.
See how easy that was? Golly, that was. And I've literally had some people tell me, I'm going to do it on Apple Computer. And I go, have a ball, you all. But you need to be able to find the information. It's just,
yeah, exactly. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay. Denise, how about you?
I did my paper on accounting in the CPA profession.
Okay.
In the past, I've recently worked for a CPA, but only for a very short time. It was a temporary position. So I did get some training. So I used some personal in my paper and also some research that I had to do on questions that I wasn't real sure about. So I did reference those.
Okay. Are you going to be able to do that for the next 5 weeks? Technology and that sort of stuff, and then improvements that you saw? If not, it might be a good idea to change companies for the next series. You're not supposed to, but we can do that.
Okay. Well, I need to give that some thought.
Okay. Well, you do not have to think that seriously about it right now, but before next week. Okay.
Yeah, definitely. Because we're going to have another paper due by Wednesday of next week that's going to involve the same company or organization.
The same one. Yes, ma'am. Okay. And so if you need to change, then that's okay. We can make that change. But if you want to stick with what you have, then stick with what you have. It's up to you.
Right.
I want someone to write about one company one week and then another company the next week, because if you were preparing this for submission to somebody as part of your assessment process, you would want to go all the way through. This is what we have. This is where we are. These are things that we need to do, and therefore, we need to do this.
Well, maybe instead of me concentrating on the CPA profession, I can just concentrate on my accounting with a certain organization.
That would be okay. That's okay. All right. And as I told George, it does not have to be. I do not need a name. As a matter of fact, I tell students, if you want to put it out there, that's okay, because it's not going anywhere. But if you are the least bit reluctant, then sanitize it, as long as you accomplish the task and the objective. I do not need to know that you work for the NASA flight program in Houston. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
All right. So literally. Okay? All right. Any other questions? Then I did have some kind of interesting stuff here I wanted to go over. And I'll turn my camera off for a second and bring some of that up. No questions?
I don't have any more questions.
Okay.
No, I don't have any questions.
All right. Well, that's good. Well, I had some things to bring up here I thought might be interesting. Several weeks ago, if you'll remember, there was a big hoo-ah going on because somebody in California the federal government wanted Apple to unlock a cell phone. Remember that?
Yes.
Okay. So how was that resolved? Now, there's some MIS issues here.
The FBI ended up they tried forcing Apple to do it. Apple stood their ground, and FBI found some other way around it. They probably hired some independent firm or hackers I don't think it's still identified how they unlocked the phone, but they ended up not needing Apple. They found a way. Okay.
Now, you want my take on that?
Sure.
Okay.
Well, I got my take on it. Well, that's from what I hear on the media, but I got my take on
Okay,
stuff
what's
as well.
your take? Let's hear your take. I'll bet it's close to mine.
Well, actually, through a couple courses, I've learned some other. I've always been part technology. I've always been at the forefront or adopting new technology early on. And I never realized, but one of my other previous courses, I never realized that, they identified, think about when you're printing a document. I have my HP printer sitting in front of me, or if you've ever burned a CD, that the government mandated a lot of I don't know if it was through NSA or whoever, but they mandated a lot of things where they could tie it back to, I guess, tied to some type of encryption or identification, that anything that you printed or any CD that you burned, it can be tied back to that individual product. So within the ink, there's like actually code within the ink you can't see. It's so micro, or the CD that you burned, it can actually be tied back to that serial number or that product that made it. And then if you register that product, then they know who did it, you know, that sort of thing. So just like with any product, then you got to file any new technologies like phones or printers, everything has to go through the FCC, and they have to apply for regulations and standardizations, and they got to meet certain criteria. And to me, it's almost like they've always had some way to jailbreak phones. It's just a matter of, you know, putting it out there, really.
Okay. Well, there's some more to that. A lot of designers automatically built in, you know what a backdoor is.
Yes, yeah.
Okay. So Denise, you know what a backdoor is on an electronic device?
No, not really.
Okay. It's like this. There's a normal way to log into your computer, right?
Mm-hmm.
But if the engineer who wrote the software might be able to turn your computer on and hit 2 or 3 keystrokes that he knows about that automatically go out and log into your computer, completely bypassing everything that you put on there. All of the safety and everything else, it just goes, I'm sorry, I know how to get in there through a back door. It's an entry point, non-public, non-published. That's a back door. So what happens, technicians usually use that. For example, if somebody really messes up their computer, right? Now, if you take it down to Best Buy and ask them to work on something, they're not going to use a back door because they do not have those. But the manufacturer might, in which case we're talking also about Apple and their thing. There may have been some sort of back doors that Apple engineers programmed into those devices. If they did, they would not let anybody know, right? Because that's a proprietary technical access. So here's what happens. Somebody says, I tried to do XYZ with my particular device and it really messed it up. Can you help me? And the manufacturer might say, yeah, we might be able to do that. And you send it to them. They do not tell you how they did it, but guess what? They can go in through a back door, fix the problem, and then return it to you. And that's really good, right? No. Okay? Because here's the problem with that. You have a couple, the reason they do not tell you that they have a back door, for example, when I was working with some of the networks, there were people that had technical accesses. They could get in the administration. The administrators would go, who was in there? And you go, well, they were, and you would see a little audit trail pop up, but you would not really know how they got in to fix something. Okay? And so those are back doors. And a lot of times, not a lot of times, sometimes an organization will program those in for service support, and then they just leave them. They never really close them. And so their technicians can use them to get in and fix problems that other people might have generated. So here we go. What happens if someone sells something like a secure cell phone, and by George, they leave a back door in it? Well, if somebody knows that, they could get in. But guess what else happens? If somebody gets really irritated, and they are one of the technicians, and they say, well, hey, there's a back door to XYZ, and they put it out to the whole world. Now the whole world has a problem.
Yeah.
So here's what happens. I have an article here I'm going to bring up a little bit. Let's see. And here it is. It talks about, are electronic back doors actually helping hackers? Well, of course they are if they know about them.
Mm-hmm.
I don't see it. I don't see your...
Well, you're not going to. I'm not sharing this.
Oh,
Let me
you
see
said
if
you
I
were
can
sharing.
share it.
I'm sorry.
Let me see if I can share it. Hold on a second. Here we go.
I thought you said you were sharing. I apologize.
Yeah, no. There's a share. Here we go. All right. Now, I'm not sure whether it's going to let me scroll. Okay, so here you go.
Yeah.
They've infiltrated airlines, energies, defense firms, other companies. You remember the thing about the North Korean thing in that movie, right?
Mhm.
Those Koreans probably got in through a back door. And so here's this big question. If you knew that J. Edgar Hoover was able to do that, how would you feel comfortable with it? Not a whole lot of people would feel comfortable with it. Okay?
No.
Really. So we have all of these types of incidents. But here's the other thing. Most of the time when something, we're going to call it bad, something bad happens to with MIS, like the hacks and that sort of thing, what do they only report? Only report maybe 20 or 30% of those, right? Because nobody wants to say, hey, some guy came in here, some girl came in here, and they stole all of our database. That's very embarrassing. So they really do not even say, but they might say it amongst themselves. And so it might get out. Okay, let's see. So there they were, and my best guess, and this is just a guess, is that somebody that either works for or used to work for Apple probably said, hey, I can do that and we'll all go away, right? Okay?
Yep.
So that was my guess on that one. I want to close this thing. It's not going to let me. Be nice. Come on. There we go. I'm going to slide this way and close it. Good. Okay. But here's the other one. This was an interesting thing here. Okay? Because this was from Computer World. And here was this one, right? Hold it. All right. I have 10 minutes. That's good. We'll be okay for 10 minutes. You just share the screen now. Are we still on our screen? Share here. Okay, you got that. Okay, well, here was a statement by the FBI. Tech companies should not be allowed to put cryptographic locks on devices so that they cannot be accessed. Wow, right? Can you guys see that?
Yeah.
Now, that's very interesting. And if you'll remember, there was at one time a lot of big hoo-ha because somebody said, oh, your television set's going to be made so that anybody that wants can actually look out at you. Now, I'm not so sure about that, but I am sure about the fact that the U.S. intelligence agencies do not want anybody to block their access. And there it was, right there. Okay? So what happens if someone does have a back door? Well, heaven only knows, as it says here, it opens to anybody that finds out about it. And they are nice and they are exploitable. And that's just the way that works. That's the way they do it. Okay, and so there were self-encrypting drives. And so, as a matter of fact, there are, let's see, weapons-grade security software, right? Here's the deal on that. I used to travel extensively outside of the country, and we were told we could not take particular software, encryption software, because it was a weapon. It had to be approved for release or for transit by the United States government. Otherwise, we could not carry that outside of the country. So they just do not want that to get out. And that's where this is the different encryption standards that you're talking about here. Okay? And they actually call it weapons. It's a weapon because it's an encryption that is of very high grade, but guess what? There are the same levels of encryption that are not that way, not government sponsored. So there you go. Okay, so here's the deal. What have we talked about? We talked a little bit about encryption, a little bit about backdoors, a little bit about MIS management. So MIS management, you have to balance several things. You have to balance your technology, people, and other resources. You must balance those. One of the biggest problems that management suffers is an inability to balance and prioritize against established objectives. And you have to have established objectives, because if you do not know where you're going, it's real easy to get there. The only problem is it might not be where you want to be. Okay? Now, next week, let me see. I have one thing here. Okay, I'll run over this very quickly because we have about 5 minutes. I only get 40 minutes free. Okay. Always include slightly more than the original question asks for. If a requirement says to find one identifier, take that as at least one. Always try to enrich the topics, providing substantive content that develops it. Ask some questions, ask thought-provoking questions and penetrating questions, and show that you have thought about what you're writing in your discussions, okay? An outstanding discussion as well as an outstanding assessment or case study will display these criteria. Here we go. Analysis from a theoretical and practical perspective. In other words, is it real and how does it relate to the content in the course? Evaluate it based upon experience and the course readings or additional material, outside resources. Synthesize ideas and innovate by providing insight. Develop the topic. And here's a quote that I like to use. Support higher level learning through the application and analysis of concepts and evaluation of other points of view. Synthesis of information and linking that information to personal, professional experiences and goals. In other words, tie it together, tie it to the course. Okay?
Sounds good.
All right. Now that should help you. And if you remember, please, if you have any questions, please do contact me anytime. I'll get back to you. Even when I'm traveling, I stop at night and I will get back on the internet. I'm never unavailable. Just maybe not right this second. Okay?
Okay, when is our next meeting here?
Then every Wednesday night at 9 o'clock.
Okay.
Here's the real kicker, right? If no one shows up by 10 after 9, I just turn it off.
Right.
I'm open. I'm here. I do have content. Next week, we should go over growth spurts, internet of things, and some content on artificial intelligence. It's really sort of interesting stuff. Okay? And it's applicable. If you're using DSS, you're going to use AI eventually. Okay?
Sounds good.
All right. And Denise and George, thank you very much for coming. And we'll see you guys next week. Yes.
Thank you.
All right. Good evening.
Thank you.
All right, good night.
All righty. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.